Welcome to another special edition of Daily Airline News focusing on the search for MH370. I'm Jeffrey Thomas and delighted to say joined once again by my co-host Richard Godfrey, the UK aerospace engineer that's taken Whisper technology, worked with it, perfected it as a tracking tool and found a new location for MH370. Good morning, Richard.
And good afternoon, Jeffrey.
And straight into it, I believe Armada 7806 is now in one of my favourite places in the world, Singapore.
It is indeed safely home to Singapore. Arrived last night, my time, early today, your time, and yeah. So the crew are now, I'm sure, enjoying a break and enjoying Singapore.
Mm. Now, what about that Chinese research survey stroke spy ship? Any further news on that?
It's still traveling up the Broken Ridge and stopping every now and again for a few hours at each location. It's now 250 nautical miles east of the seventh arc, so but it's moving in that direction.
Mm.
At one point last night, it was actually heading to the Whisper hotspot. So
Oh, wow.
um,
Okay.
that that'd be interesting if it stops at the Whisper hotspot.
Well, of course, the question is, does it have the equipment on board to do any sort of meaningful search of that type? I presume it has.
Yeah. Well, there's the difference. Ocean Infinity tell you all about their AUVs and ROVs, but I couldn't find any information on this Chinese vessel. I can see it's got a very large crane on the back, so it certainly can salvage wreckage from the seafloor. It's obviously got lots of echo sounders built into the bottom of the ship, but whether it's got AUVs and ROVs, I really don't know.
Hmm. So, folks, we promised you to answer questions and look at some of the conspiracy theories. And so we've got some great questions. And the first one comes from Kathy Blake, um, I7 Victor. Guys, get some merchandise up on the channel. I'll buy it and proudly wear it. So I'm sort of thinking of a t-shirt with a caricature of ourselves, let's find MH370, something like that, plus a hat, not a red hat, another
Uh,
color.
but bear in mind, all my jumpers are navy blue, all my shirts are navy blue, so I'll order the one in navy blue, please.
And I'll do the one in black. Yeah. Anyway, actually, Kathy, it's a great idea, and it's something we will look at in the future. So thank you for that. Thank you for that thought. Now, Mark Lubza 2433. Why would New Zealand grant permission for the Chinese to scratch around along their coast as though the Chinese would allow similar? Interesting question.
It is indeed. The deal that New Zealand struck with the Chinese is they can visit their coastline and do marine research, marine biology, uh, in return for sharing all their information with the New Zealand academics who are also studying marine biology. So there is a quid pro quo agreement. But as you say, it would be rather fascinating if the Chinese would allow the New Zealanders to visit China and do some offshore marine investigation.
Interesting. One of the things I know about New Zealand is they've got some very large marine parks around New Zealand, and it's quite fascinating the number of fish that live in those marine parks. They've been very, very successful. So possibly the Chinese are studying those to do something similar off China. Um, anyway, this one's more of a statement from John Potter, 6464. Good day, gents. Thank you for another fine podcast in Haxby, North Yorkshire, United Kingdom. So, hi, John, and thanks for the comment. Now, Karen Ricketts, 4956. I recently came across your channel, found it fascinating, and subscribed immediately. I'm an attorney and not technical at all, but your videos are really interesting. I haven't missed one since. I'm really in awe of what you're doing to advance scientific knowledge in the area. The world ought to be thanking you. I am. So that's another nice comment. Thank you very much. And then from Dan's Check 834. Outstanding reporting. I watch and listen from Arizona. Would like to see them search the Whisper area. Will they be compelled to search that area? Thank you, Dan. That's a question for you, Richard.
Yeah, no one's compelling anybody. So, Ocean Infinity were kind enough to invite my co-author, Professor Simon Maskell, who's doing a in-depth study of Whisper at the Liverpool University in the UK. And so they uh, asked Simon to help them in defining the Whisper area, and they will be searching that. They will be searching areas from many experts, including the IG, including Captain Patrick Blelly and Jean-Luc Marchand, and maybe also they haven't announced this particular area yet, but the UWA have a an area which they have suggested and put forward in the study. So they're all similar areas along the seventh arc, going out this time further from the seventh arc, and we look forward to Ocean Infinity starting again in the next search season in November.
And Little Android 75, a similar question with the Whisper site with an accuracy of 30-kilometer radius. Why the plane is not yet found? You have to admit that area is not so big.
It isn't large, but neither were any of the other hotspots. The one from the IG, one from Blely Marchand, also relatively small. But the fact is that Ocean Infinity have only been surveying up until now. They haven't actually been searching any of these areas. Of course, if they come across something during the survey, then they will stop surveying and look more closely at what they might have found. But they haven't done that. They haven't stopped. They've now stopped for the season and returned to Singapore. So, yeah, it won't take long, as you say, to cover each of these areas, which are not large.
Mm. Now onto the conspiracy ones. PD Kings asks, hi guys, thanks for the great work. On your talk about debunking conspiracies, can or has Whisper been used to dismiss the AWAC narrative built on Netflix MH370 documentary? I wonder if it would be as simple as identifying MH370 being relatively alone during its last moments to debunk this entirely. Can you answer that one?
Yeah, the AWACS narrative came from Florence de Changy, who was interviewed on the Netflix documentary. She puts forward that two AWACS aircraft came alongside MH370, but not at the end, right at the start, and over the South China Sea. So that has been debunked by using Whisper. What we've done with Whisper is followed MH370 from takeoff past the diversion point, back across Malaysia, back into the Malacca Strait on the other side, and all the way down into the southern Indian Ocean. We've also tracked all the other aircraft. So we're showing a screenshot of all of the regional aircraft that were in the air anywhere in the vicinity of MH370. And we did identify all of those aircraft at the start of the flight. And later on in the Indian Ocean, we did identify an Singapore Airlines flight, SQ, let me check with my notes, SQ 478 from Singapore to Joburg. We also identified EK 407, which we've talked about. And yesterday I had a nice comment from Jean-Luc Marchand on my website, and he told us about EY 461, which they've also discovered was close to MH370. But there has been at no point any unidentified aircraft like AWACS aircraft um, close to MH370 during the flight.
And for those listeners who don't know what an AWACS aircraft is from the US Air Force, it's a Boeing 707 with a great big revolving dish on top. You can't miss it. It's yeah. So, Jane Glue, 6281. Does anyone know what happened to Ian Higgins? He was involved in the early days, but I've heard that he disappeared. Thank you also for the tremendous authentic information you provide. So, in fact, I'm going to answer that question. I know Ian Higgins contacted you a couple of times, Richard. He was a
Yep.
reporter with the Australian newspaper, a really, really lovely guy. He wrote a book on the disappearance of MH370, and then, very, very sadly, he disappeared. And it is understood that he had some um, emotional problems, some lifestyle problems, and it is understood and believed that he took his own life. And that's, I believe, is the coroner's report. So that's a very sad outcome for Ian. Very, very, really lovely fella. Really liked him. Um, so that's the answer to you, Jane. Mark Rhoda, 4768. Hi, Richard and Jeffrey. I like the information Richard has given regarding the search for MH370. The question I have is why is the journalist Florence Shanshi so vehemently opposed to Richard Godfrey's work, as well as Jeff Wise and others who don't believe the plane went south and crashed in the ocean? I tried following Florence's theory for a long time and find it absolutely ludicrous. It sounds like Florence has about 10 different theories all melted into one ball of confusion and guessing. And Mark, by the way, she's also had a crack at me for supporting Richard, therefore trying to garner clicks on when I was writing with the airline ratings while she's trying to sell her book. So it's a bit hypocritical. Anyway, Richard, your thoughts on that one?
Yeah. Florence, as you say, has written extensively on MH370. Um, I guess if you want to understand why she so vehemently opposes our work, as does Jeff Wise, you have to ask them. The fact is that both Florence Ashanchi and Jeff Wise support the thesis that we are not being told the truth by the officials and the authorities. They are withholding information. Florence puts forward the AWACS theory. She puts forward that MH370 is in the South China Sea. Jeff Wise puts forward that it was diverted to Kazakhstan. And the problem with both of those, they ignore then the Inmarsat satellite data, which they say is faked. They ignore all of the 43 items of floating debris which have been found, which they say were planted. A bit difficult, 43 items in so many different countries around the Indian Ocean and found by so many different people. But there you go, that's what they claim. It's been planted. Um, they basically reject the investigation by Malaysia, by the ATSB, by Boeing, by Inmarsat, and of course they reject the work I'm doing on Whisper together with Professor Simon Maskell and Dr. Hannes Kurtzi. But they would also dispute the IG hotspot. They would dispute the UWA area. So they dispute just about everything from anybody else.
One of the interesting things about conspiracy theories, and sure, we've had some conspiracies. We all know there have been conspiracies, but they normally involve about maybe 5, 10, 20 people, maybe. Any more than that, it'll never, ever, ever be kept quiet. The conspiracy theories that they espouse would require the silence of thousands. And you just can't get that. And you're like with the debris. I know they've blamed Blaine Gibson for planting the whole lot, and they've labelled him a Russian spy because he spent some time in Russia. I've spent some time in Russia too. I've been to St. Petersburg, and yet the debris was found. I think it was about 17 different people have found the debris. I don't know the exact number, but it's certainly Blaine's found quite a few pieces, but managed to get himself photographed with a few other pieces as well. But to say that all the debris was planted is just utterly absurd.
Well, Jeffrey, you've just proven it. I learnt Russian, one of my foreign languages at school. I've also
Yeah,
been to St. Petersburg, so there you go. We're all part of the same conspiracy, aren't we?
I didn't realize that, Richard. I didn't.
Yeah, well, there.
I tell you what, I don't want to go back there. I can assure you, I wasn't very impressed. Anyway. Okay, so from Johnny Raven 4217, gentlemen, thank you for another great video. This MH370 saga is reading like a mystery novel that perhaps no one would ever conceive of. The apparent secrecy of the Malaysian government, the early involvement of the US Navy or Air Force, the repeated searches, discovery of airplane pieces far away, and then on again, off again Oceanfinity work, now the Chinese research vessel. Not to mention the seemingly endless conspiracy theories and disparaging commentary around theories and the adaptation of whisper technology. I am sure I am missing many more matters relating to MH370. It does not seem to end. As the saying goes, truth is stranger than fiction. What should really be a technical exercise to find the plane has turned into a psychodrama and a story of international intrigue, all at a terrible cost to the families desperately seeking a certain level of closure on this tragedy. Very well put, Johnny. The last line, terrible tragedy for the families. But Richard, your thoughts on that
Yeah,
comment?
Johnny, you're absolutely right in your summary. It does read like a crime story or a spy story, but it seems to have a lot of pages to this story. In fact, 150 books full of pages on this story. And I think the definitive book on MH370 has not yet been written. And when that is written, I think there's another book about the story behind the story, because that's equally deep and interesting. So I think there's a lot more to learn about MH370, which has not yet reached the public domain.
And let's hope we find it later on this year. Um, The Shore NA1. Don't forget Harold Holt ELF Communications based near Exmouth. I'm absolutely sure it has nothing to do with that knot.
Yeah, you're quite right. Not. Harold E. Holt Station, HEH as it's known, is a very low frequency communication transmitter. It is a massive 4 kilometer squared area covered with many antenna. It has a 1 megawatt transmitter, which is huge, powerful, and it's built on an area which has 386 kilometers of copper wire buried in the earth to make sure that the ground plane for this antenna system is absolutely spot on. What this facility can do is communicate with submarines in the Indian Ocean and in the Pacific Ocean, even when they're submerged. So it takes quite a powerful antenna to be able to do that. There was also an incident where a flight from Qantas 72 was flying from Singapore to Perth and passing by Exmouth when it had a problem with its flight control system, which was due to this 1 megawatt transmitter coupled together with a fault in the flight computer system that wasn't screening out any radio frequencies like that, which is transmitted from Exmouth from HEH. 110 people got taken to hospital after an emergency landing in the area. So a very interesting facility. There's more than just the very low frequency. There's a high frequency transmitter and receiver. There's a space surveillance and a solar observatory. So there's a lot going on at HEH, and I know a guy who worked at HEH and on the Jawn over the horizon radar in Australia. And in both facilities, they could see the planes landing and taking off in Changi Airport in Singapore from their locations in Australia. So I am sure those systems could well have observed MH370 as well, but officially they were both not operating on the night of the 7th, 8th of March 2014. Either not operating or the Australian authorities don't want to reveal the capability that they have.
And for those listeners who don't know much about Exmouth, that US base has been there since the 1960s. And I used to work up there. And at Exmouth, it's absolutely fabulous place. There's a phenomenal reef called the Ningaloo Reef, and it's one of the only, I think it's the only coral reef in the world that's on a west coast, and it's famous for the whale sharks. When the coral is spawning, the whale sharks come from wherever, and there's lots of them, and it's usually April, May, June, around about now, into July, and you can go out there and swim with the whale sharks. It's really fabulous. So, if you've not been there, put it on your bucket list. It's worth going to, and you can look at those great big antennas as well while you're there. So, Richard, I think that's all the questions for today. Now, we're going to do something special tomorrow, are we not?
Yeah. What I did is I ran a survey of all of the experts and what they believe happened to MH370. So we're going to talk about what all the experts believe might have happened. It's quite a fascinating story.
That's going to be a great one. Yes. So do tune in tomorrow, viewers. So thanks again, Richard, for your time and on today's questions. Please keep sending the questions in, viewers. They're really fabulous, and I've got a few more, quite a few more to go through in the next couple of days. Please subscribe to us. Please like us, and do tune in tomorrow for what the experts think happened to MH370. Thank you, Richard.
You're welcome.